Welcome to Exploring the Ozarks, where we learn what defines the culture of the Ozarks one person, place, and story at a time. We're here with Matt Graham and David Carr at Studio One. Join us as we explore the story of today's guest. Here's Matt.
Oh yeah. It's Eddie!
Hey, what's up?
Yes, because we have a whole different intro now, so you don't need to worry about any of this other stuff.
That's true. We could start with me saying that.
That's fine.
It's Eddie!
It's
Yay!
Eddie!
Just so you know, Eddie, here's the main camera over here in front of us. So you do the effects again. Woo!
I do like the Wayne's World effect there. That was good.
So Eddie, we have to ask you. I know we didn't start like we normally do because
that's all right.
We're in a little different mindset, but when are you going to come and play for us on Exploring the Ozarks? We have a new segment called Music from the Warehouse.
Yep.
Anytime.
That'd be you.
I'm holding that.
I mean, I may be a half hour late, but
I wasn't going to bring it up. I wasn't. I promise.
But we're glad you did.
I had to. It's that Catholic guilt.
It's Catholic.
It never goes away.
No, but you just you say some Hail Marys and you're good to go, right?
That's right.
Is that what I understand about Catholicism?
Uh-huh.
Eddie Gumucio is here, and thank you all for tuning in today, by the way. We have none other than the guy that banner is for, that we have in here 24/7 all the time, the Queen City Shout banner that you've probably seen in other podcasts in our different setup. But but we have brought in the, what is it, 1992 Dodge
there's a
Ram
blank
van.
spot there. I should just
You totally should put that over there.
Yeah.
Now that we're over here,
You're gonna see that here soon enough.
Yeah.
It's gonna just be right there.
We need
the
to-
Queen
it's
City
a-
Shout.
it's a cool banner. So.
But Eddie mentioned something about the van seat when he walked in. It's like, this is why we have the seat, by the way, to elicit weird memories.
I love it.
Dude, everybody talks about
And
it.
they're all clean memories.
Probably not what Eddie's band was.
No, it was.
That was a rock and roll touring band.
We were good rock and rollers.
Good. Oh, Catholic rock. Gotcha.
Yeah, the ones that just ask for forgiveness afterwards, right? But
Tell us about it though. What happened
Yeah.
with why does this brings happy memories? I imagine.
We had
or is it sad?
No, it was happy. We had a lot of good times in that van. It was a '78 Chevy van, and it had the shag carpet in the back.
Ooh, nice.
Had like little lamps hanging off the wood paneling.
Yes.
This
is good.
Even had curtains on the back for like the windows and stuff.
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
Not cliche 70s band at all.
Exactly.
Not at all.
Had a little kitchenette, a little like wooden kitchenette. I guess you brought in like a little water pump thing or whatever. But one of the captain's chairs, the passenger side, was not bolted on completely. So I don't know if it was legal, but it would just keep
spin around.
You had your belt.
So it wasn't supposed to swivel, but it did.
It swiveled. Well, it swiveled like you couldn't lock it in. That's what it was.
So it just swiveled all the time.
Yeah.
Your seatbelts would hold you
Right.
in. I can just imagine all the stories now, man.
So what happened to it?
Yeah.
I guess there was a slow leak of oil.
Hydrogen chlorine or something like that. Anyway,
Something like that.
Oil and gas.
And it kept hitting the exhaust pipe or the.
Oh my God.
Okay.
We're driving along. We're about 30 minutes from Springfield, just this side of Bolivar, and we see our guitar player was actually looking through the rearview mirror in the passenger side, doing this. And he's like, are those flames? And I looked.
Because we're on fire.
I'm like, oh my gosh, we're on fire! So the back of the van is flaming, and we pull over.
Oh my God.
And the whole undercarriage is on fire, and so we all bolt.
Oh man.
But we had a trailer attached to it.
Did you get it off?
Huh?
Did you get it off?
We did not get it off.
No.
But more importantly,
Probably
It's tough to do when things are on
smart.
fire.
Yeah, I was going to say probably smart.
we ran away thinking, okay, if the thing explodes, maybe the trailer will be salvaged. But
I'm gonna say, here's how the story ends. I'm gonna guess. You forgot to turn the brakes on, and the van slowly rolled back towards you, and then blew up.
Can never get away from
That's
it.
right. No, we watched it for a little while, and then everyone all of a sudden was like, the guitars!
Yeah, that's what I was
That's
thinking.
expensive.
That's where I was headed.
The guitars were below the back bench of the van,
Okay.
not in the trailer. So
Okay.
we had to run back, get between the trailer, and open the back doors.
Right where the fire is.
Right. And try to get these guitars out.
Jeez.
And then there was a family, it was a husband, wife, and their daughter who just happened to come by. They get out, and they had a fire extinguisher.
Dang.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like an angel, just like, hey, guys.
No kidding.
I had a fire. My car, one of my cars burst into flames too. Not the one that the seat came out of. But I was in the middle of Wyoming at the time.
Oh God.
So I pull off because my engine had blown up. But anyway, I'll tell the full story later. But I had to flag down a semi truck driver, and he had a fire extinguisher, and it put it out for a little bit, but then
Oh gosh.
and then it
Came back.
It came back before the fire department got there. So
Well, that's
the whole entire inside of the car melted. It was
in the middle of Wyoming too.
In the middle
so
of
there's
Wyoming.
nowhere else to go here.
Yeah,
you weren't 30 minutes
yeah.
away from Springfield.
I was
at
30
least,
minutes away
but-
from a city that somebody that now that I know better, they charge me $600 for a tow, and I'm like, dude.
Dang. They do that to people in the middle
They
of
did.
Wyoming.
Well,
I've seen that.
And anywhere that's remote like that, it's like I wouldn't have expected more than $100,
Yeah.
honestly, if I was to do that nowadays. But
Yeah.
I ended up trading him the car for the tow expense,
Right.
and then I still paid him $100, I think, on top of that.
So get the roadside assistance when you get your insurance.
or just have more experience and don't be
because
taken advantage of.
this sounds like
A lot of things.
well, this sounds like a true rock and roll story. To
That is
me.
a good
I mean,
story.
were you guys
I like
coming back
that.
from
I
a
like
gig?
that.
I suppose
We were. We used
Kansas
to
City. I'm supposing too.
Well,
with
we used
Bolivar.
to do what we called these like slingshot tours.
Sure.
So we'd go all the way out to like Lincoln, Nebraska, where University of Nebraska is, or like Omaha or Des Moines, and then come back and hit Columbia or KC or Lawrence and come back. So we must have done at least, we would normally do like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday type deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were coming back from Kansas City probably, and
Lit up on
just
fire.
happened. Yeah.
Almost made it home though. Damn it.
yeah.
So I feel like that's probably a good transition to talking about your event.
Yeah.
That we really want to talk to you about today, plus other things, of course.
Yeah, of
but
course.
We don't blow up or burn vans at Queen City Shout, right? But
No.
No. But
That'd be a whole new like fun day of activity.
But you know what? It
artistic expression.
I
with
mean,
fire.
I want to sit
the
here
blowing
and
up thing schedule.
right, and I want to sit here and say that this is kind of like you could go on a tour of music in Springfield. That's kind of how I pitch it to people. It's like you could go to all of these venues, because how many venues do you guys still have that are part of this? Has this list grown?
It has.
That we see over here?
We have 9.
There's 25 there or so venues.
Well,
There's a lot.
20 of them?
we had 6 venues last year,
Jeez.
and now we've got 9.
Okay.
So some of those you see there are just like sponsored.
Sponsors.
I feel like I have to
My
say Springfield Studio One is one of them, but only for the film festival, not for music.
Right.
For the whole deal, man.
Right.
For the whole deal,
So
yeah,
let's-
we are part of Queen City
Right,
Shout.
so
but
let's get into the Queen City Shout, because you've got how many bands are playing this year? I mean, how many did you have last year? We had so many last year.
We had just over 100.
100
And
bands.
now we've got just shy of 120.
Oh my
Gosh,
goodness!
So it's growing and
Oh, my
growing. So
goodness.
glad you got more places for them to play this year.
Yeah, and the last 2 years, so originally it was on C Street. The last 2 years after the pandemic, we moved into downtown and
nice.
Roundtree, and now we've added Galloway.
Very cool.
So
Nice.
we've got 4 barrios now.
Very
Well,
cool.
We did a whole entire interview with you last year, so if you want to know more, the whole entire story, please go check that out. But I mean, minute recap: how did it start, and what's the point behind Queen City Shout?
It goes all the way back to Borders bookstore days.
Back when that used to exist.
Oh,
Yeah.
Borders was
Yeah.
the best.
I was there all the time.
Gosh, yeah.
I was the media manager there, and honestly, it was just kind of bored. So I told my GM, I said, hey, the holiday season's over, and January and February tend to be slower months.
Yeah.
So as a way to kind of bring people in, I thought I was well connected. I've been playing music in town for about 25 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how about I reach out and thinking of putting on this music series in the cafeteria, Queen City Shout. And he's like, sounds good. And, we already had a PA
Okay.
because we had nationally touring authors and songwriters that would come through to promote their new album or something
How
like
cool is
that.
Wow.
Because they used to do things like CDs and sell those there too.
Yes, that's
Gosh,
right.
those were the days, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
And also, we...
It's before social media too,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. But I was really proud that we had the largest local music section in town as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
But if you've ever been to the other bookstore, their cafeteria is non-existent. I mean, it's small. So for those that had never stepped into a Borders, our cafeteria, our cafe, was probably 4 or 5 times that size. So there was a lot of seating, and like I said, we had the PA. If people wanted a drink or something to eat, it was right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just very... And
I went for the coffee, not the books, really,
Yeah.
honestly.
we'd promote it with like the news leader and stuff like that. But other than that, it was just in-house. people come up to the register. We'd stick a little handbill like, "Hey, we got a music series
Sure,
coming
yeah.
on." And,
That's cool.
So this was like 19-ish years ago.
so this is year 13.
13, okay.
But
yeah,
from the time it was at Borders to the time it came out into the city, there was like a 4-year gap.
okay. So almost, almost.
It's not 13 consecutive.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And then making it through the COVID years and all that as well.
Right.
Because that affected you guys pretty tremendously, I would suppose.
Yeah, there was one year we were supposed to do live, and we ended up reorganizing it and creating an all online.
Oh,
So
that's tough.
we had a virtual
That's
art
right.
gallery. We had movies showing on a YouTube channel.
Oh gosh.
We had artists
Shoot.
playing live.
I actually remember
Yeah,
that.
I remember
though.
that.
Yeah, I remember,
the
videos
artists playing
and-
live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the different quality cameras, because of course I pay attention to.
Well, he
Oh,
would,
totally.
yeah.
But the fact that you still did it was
Right.
spoke loads about the dedicated people behind Queen City Shout and the artists that really want to be a part of it. So,
Yeah, I
mean,
remember the virtual tip jars.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Virtual
was like the
tip
first
jars.
time I'd ever seen that. And I was like,
Yeah.
that is actually genius.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, there's some trauma from back then. Well, I mean, just because
Trauma from COVID? What?
Some of the
You
some
too?
Of some of the conversations just totally changed to like, is there gonna be a PA? Do I need to bring my own gear? To more like, how do I make my guitar not appear to be a left-handed guitar player? Like, what do I need to
Which
do?
is actually a big,
God,
yeah.
man.
If you don't know if you don't know the mirroring effect that cameras do,
Yeah.
And I would say probably the more important thing that probably maybe the artist had figured out prior, but I mean, just how do you pick up the audio properly?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that it still sounds good? I mean,
How's
'cause
the video not
necessarily-
too big to put on Facebook? or
Yeah,
whatever,
things like that. How the stream quality and all these
You're
things.
right.
I mean,
'Cause
Yeah.
some
What's the best
folks-
time to put it on? I mean, my
Yeah.
gosh, there's so much into that.
Some folks relied just on their phone. Some put their phone up to record a PA that they had set up, and maybe they had on low volume, or if not, to get
interesting.
just
Yeah,
all kinds of weird stuff. Some running through the board.
sure.
Some had the
Yeah.
little teleprompter running across saying, "Hey, this is so and so. Please hit my
awesome.
tip jar."
Oh,
So
yeah,
all sorts of different
wow.
levels of technical expertise. And you can still see some of these artists too that I think I don't know if they probably learned it from COVID, but you'll still see them doing like live streams. And shows
Oh, I
and
think
stuff, and
every
it's-
artist learned so much about that through
Yep.
COVID that after COVID, it really made them much better at their social media presence and
Mm-hmm.
how to get these things to sound better, look better. So I think you were probably a catalyst for a lot of these people to sound better
Probably.
online, but we'll give you that anyway. So,
Hey, thanks.
so tell us the venues. Let's go over the venues real quick. Who do you got for the venues so far
On
this year?
C Street this year, we have Lindbergh's, and we have 2 stages at White River.
Oh,
so
very
there's
cool.
like the tap room or the patio, depending on weather, and then we've got the main stage in the back.
Yeah. Cool venue. I love that place.
Yeah, me too.
Place is great. Lindbergh's though too.
Yeah, a lot of
Lindbergh's.
history there.
Well, so as I mentioned earlier, C Street it's always going to be the heart of the festival because that's where it all began.
Yeah.
When we had Moon City Pub at one time, we had Curioteca, we had the Vecino Group. They had an outdoor stage at one point. But yeah, Ruthie's when it was still around, they were
Yeah.
another one of the venues. But anyway, we've got those 3, the 2 stages at White River, 1 at Lindbergh's. Downtown, we've got the Mother's Barrel Room. We've got Holdfast Brewery.
Sweet.
In Roundtree, we've got the Royal
Okay.
and Tie and Timber.
Okay.
And then down in Galloway, 4x4.
Oh yes.
So
very cool.
We were hoping to get, oh my gosh, the other brewery down there.
Gosh.
I don't go
I've
to a
got
lot of
so
those.
many of them down there
Yeah.
now, it feels like. But Tie and Timber, I'm glad you've got them. That's a phenomenal venue to be
Mm-hmm.
at. They've got space for days there.
And I would be surprised if anybody turned you down. Honestly, it's just such a well-known event at this point. It just kind of takes over C Street and all that.
Well, it's a
and-
good vibe. It's a good. I mean, everybody. When you come in, even if you are just going to the brewery and you stumble upon it, I mean, Tie and Timber's so busy most of the time. That's really good for you
Yeah,
guys, for people to be able to see that.
Tie and Timber and Holdfast, which
Yeah.
is interesting because that's still a work in progress in terms of kind of educating their clientele to be like, hey, don't normally do a cover here, but this is why we're here,
Right.
and it's worked out. It's
Yeah.
grown that way from a financial standpoint, but it's just kind of like,
yeah.
consider giving, consider buying
Yeah.
a wristband and stuff.
But the bands that you have, I mean, it's so nice for them to be able to do something like this where it's promoting them and finally get to be in front of people for once almost, you know what I mean? Because Springfield's music scene is tough. For any of these bands to get on and play anywhere. I mean, Lindbergh's is really good at doing that. I don't know. What are some of these other venues I'm sure are probably getting better at it. But for you to be opening these doors for these people, especially the venues too, because they need it too. But it's almost like it's gone are the days of Juke Joint and, a lot of those other venues back in the day that it was guaranteed on a Friday night, Saturday night, Thursday night, even Wednesday night sometimes. If it was the Regency, Wednesday night was the big night. That you'd go downtown and you could go see a show just about anywhere. And sometimes even the Regency had huge acts that would come through on a Wednesday night.
Totally, like a national act.
Absolutely. I mean, even when, Snoop Dogg would come to town and stuff, and you're like, what in the world is this? But
I want to blame the internet and the ability to access things from anywhere right there.
Well, it's just going back to what you said earlier about, CD signings and stuff like that. You just don't see that stuff anymore.
It's funny because it's kind of come back around, though, in some ways, because I think people appreciate now being in person. Especially after COVID, but I think people are getting fatigue of like watching things online only. So it's nice to have these kind of open venues where you can go and see things in person.
Absolutely. So let's talk about dates. What dates are we talking
It's actually about time for a commercial break.
Commercial break. That means I also have to go. So I'll let you guys get back to it, but I have to take my daughter to a daddy-daughter date night tonight.
Because Matt's a good dad.
Because that and I bailed on her for the daddy-daughter dance. So I've got to make up for it. And she's been itching to go. And I was like, well, there's nothing really playing that a kid can watch. And so she finally saw the preview for the Wonka movie, and she was like, that's it.
Because she likes musicals, which actually ties in with what we're talking about now.
Exactly.
I mean,
good one to see.
I hate to leave this because I can talk about music all day long.
Well, that's the exciting thing, because we are going to start doing the music from the warehouse, which we already have. We have a band in line for that. We're going to have, it sounds like Eddie come in. I actually put a post on the Musicians Network, on Facebook. I got like 60 people responding to that.
Really?
I mean, all these people that want to come in and just have
I didn't know there was a
interview
Musicians Network on Facebook.
Oh yeah, there is. It's huge.
All right, cool.
It's huge.
So, I definitely need to explore that too. Then. Did some of those come from that? Some of your acts or anything?
Most of it's just been contacts that I've known, but then also just discovering new bands.
Good.
Mostly.
Well, we'll talk more about that whenever we get back from the commercial.
How do you find all these new bands in Springfield? That's mind blowing to me. So, but Eddie, it was good to see you.
It's good to see you.
I'll be back again, and I know we're going to do this again. So, hopefully, we'll have you back before Queen City, and we can talk about it again. But we've got a band that's coming in next Thursday. To film for our very first Music in the Warehouse. So,
by the time people see this, it'll have been a couple weeks ago. Because this is coming out in March before Queen City shows.
Right, but this will be good to start this relationship, and you need to come back and show us what you got too. All right, because you've been teasing us for years.
I will schedule him after we're done with this recording.
All right. Well, everybody else, I always like to say it, but you can say it later on. But keep exploring the Ozarks. Then.
And we're back. And unfortunately, like Matt said, he had to go and be with his daughter. I shouldn't say unfortunately. It's actually fortunately, because Matt's a great dad and great guy. So I'm sure they'll have a great time on that date. Definitely. That's about all we can say. I feel like a couple of football commentators right now. That's such a great play. He did such a good job on that. Anyway. So we're going to continue on with the conversation.
I did want to mention in that lineup earlier, speaking of football and lineups and stuff, I forgot to name drop one of the venues, the Warehouse Bar.
Oh yeah, that's a new one
out west. So really this year we're
all over the place.
We're trying to cover all areas.
And there's that
of the city.
food truck park down there at the Warehouse Bar. So I mean, that should be a really cool spot for people to just kind of.
Yeah, it's a great venue.
Yeah,
I've known JT for years, and they're doing great things out there.
Cool. Yeah. So to follow up on Matt's question from right before we left for the commercial, how do you find the bands? I mean, when I put that notice out on the Musicians Network, I got, like I said, 60 comments. People wanted to come in here and do this interview and stuff like that. I imagine that if you did something similar for Queen City Shout lineups, you'd probably get several hundred people responding. Or, I mean, how does that work?
So we've built a database now that we just send it out. and we say, hey, here's the cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
So this year it was December 1st.
So is there any criteria for bands? Like, do you actively listen and select people that you know are going to be good, or do you just say, hey, if you want to come and can sing, sure, you can come and perform?
No, definitely. We listen to all the new acts, like if there's a new name that's been submitted.
Mm-hmm.
So we always ask to send an icon of their band logo or a band photo, a bio, and obviously music links.
Sure. Yeah.
So we'll go and check it out. We're probably, as we move forward, it may get into the situation where we're just doing nothing but original music, because right now we have some cover acts.
Sure.
Which are great cover acts, especially a lot of, not just bands, but singer-songwriters. But we're just getting such an influx.
Yeah.
That may be something new for next year. But
do you feel like more and more there's more and more original music? Just because, and I'm a bit of a musician myself. I don't consider myself I don't perform out in public or anything like that. I just more at home and sang a lot growing up in choirs and other things. But do you feel like with the new advent of technology and maybe making things easier with AI and things like that, do you think people are coming up with more original stuff because of that, or do you think it's just we just have more and more talented artists?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I really don't know. The majority of our roster, I would say easy 90% of it's original music.
Yeah. And
then the other 10, is sprinkled in with cover acts. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
AI is reshaping a lot of things now.
Yeah.
It's even with my videography and photography. It's who knows what you can create a lot more with it. But
create an album for me based off of U2's Joshua Tree,
and people do that.
Yeah, and then boom, and then there you are.
Which to me is kind of you can't take the humanity out of artistry, but okay. If it helps.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I hope it is. It's maybe it helps people with writer block, or if they need to have if they're having an issue with something, it can help them streamline the process so that they have a better product overall, but which should be good, I think, overall. So with Queen City Shout, so I'm going to sit up and act like I have some sort of really important question. Can you tell that we wing these interviews sometimes? No, we want to talk more about Queen City Shout. So tell us a bit more about, the dates, when it's going to happen, what the general format is. If I want to put this in my schedule now, when should I be scheduling it for? And then how do I get the tickets, and how do I get in and hear the music?
It's March 18th through the 24th.
Mm-hmm.
So the last few years, we basically follow, it's the first week of spring. And it's also the week that follows South by Southwest. And there's always a connection there for the simple reason that for me, being kind of a music nerd, South by Southwest has always been known as kind of the kickoff to the festival season.
Interesting.
For that coming year.
So now for everybody else that doesn't know who it is, what that is, and of course I know what South by Southwest is, if I don't know what it is. What is that? Just real quick.
So
I feel like I know what it is, by the way. It's it's in the back of my mind, but it's
South by Southwest takes place in Austin, Texas every year. And it's a big international film, music industry conference.
I do remember that, Johan, when he came in to interview with us, he kind of mentioned that, how he went down there quite a bit to do some promoting and stuff.
Yeah, it's just, it's kind of the
place to be.
Yeah, a band gets in on playing South by Southwest, or man,
they're good. It's like Sundance for film, or
exactly. And the exposure and all that. So not to suggest that we're on that same kind of tier.
Of course we are. We're in the Midwest with them. It's
but it's what better festival to model after?
Yeah.
And it's not even from a copycat standpoint, but it's this aspect of just being a fan of the arts myself.
Right.
It's yeah, we want to showcase music. Yeah, we want to showcase art, and we want to showcase film, and now we're doing dance and poetry. And
I think that was my next question. This is a good segue into that. So we know you for music, and we've talked a lot about that, but you have a lot of other components. Like I mentioned earlier that we're doing the film screens here at Studio One, which we're happy to do. Ozarks Film Foundry is a nonprofit that's also helping manage that. And then Christian and Tavish, of course, are the ones chairing that. But there's other things beyond film that you do. So talk a bit more about the things beyond the music.
Sure. So I think it was the second year on C Street.
Mm-hmm.
We added visual arts and we added film.
So by visual arts, you mean?
Like painters, designers, sculptors. We had a gallery opening up on C Street where people could come around and see, because some of it was 3D, some of it was on canvas and, things like that. So we started promoting it as not just a music festival, but then it became Queen City Shout Music, Film, and Art. But I want to speak to that because even back then, the art and the film was very subtle.
Sure.
Like we had maybe 6 films.
I remember the first time I heard of Queen City Shout, it was a couple of years ago. I helped organize Sado 48, and we had done some Sado films that you had wanted us to screen, and then also have like some panels and stuff like that. So, but even at that point, I was like, oh, I thought this was a music festival. So very, very subtle, this part of it, but you're definitely wanting to grow it more. Like this year, you've taken a lot of strides to appoint people to actually grow it.
Exactly. So just to give you another idea of back then having just film and art, it was a one-man act in terms of the different hats that I would wear to make sure. So it was always the music, and then with the remaining time, I would try to find film and art. After the pandemic, I started a committee 2 years ago, and there's been 5 members. And then this year, we've tripled that. So there's 15 members on the committee.
Nice.
And as you said, some of the committee members have been charged with doing film programming, with doing arts programming, with doing, and then we added dance and poetry this year.
That's really cool.
So it really starts to evolve into more of like a festival, how I imagine a festival, which kind of takes on a bit of a circus, which is great because you have all these little tents and all these different programs. It's also a great way to say, hey, if you're not much on the music, check out all the film. If you're not much up on the film, come check out the Springfield Dance Alliance. They're going to put on a performance of, So
that's really cool.
That's been really exciting as we've evolved into moving from C Street into other barrios and other parts of the city to also expand our committee, to also expand our programming. And now I think Christian and Tavish said, they've got films scheduled for the whole week, and there's like 50 plus films.
Somewhere. I don't know the exact number, but somewhere close to that.
So, I mean, just night and day to any of the largest programs.
And a lot of them are original. I mean, and they're not all from here in the Ozarks, but it's Missouri centric. It should be a really cool part of it. And it's meant to, their goal has been to incorporate into the festival without taking over like the music aspect of it. So they're like screening things during the afternoon and like making sure that they're leaving people time to go and watch or listen to the music and be at those places if they want to. So I like that it's expanding out and not competing with each other.
Well, and what's nice about that too is I really appreciate the committee working organically that way.
Yeah.
Because that was never like some discussion. I think it was just on their own accord where they said, hey, how can we, and sometimes in the past we've had things kind of cross over. In some ways that's kind of a beautiful thing with the festival too. Even with the music, you have things staggered. So sometimes you have to sacrifice an act because this one's playing here and this one's playing here, and you're like, which one am I going to go see?
Well, so it's a nice problem to have eventually. Like if you actually get that big, which you should. You're growing every year, and everybody likes it.
Do I want to take a break from music and go see some film now, or do I want to go see this dance performance? But that's great that you're talking about that scheduling, how that might lead into like, I can do it all now. I can check out this early part, and then I can go check out the music.
Yeah.
So it's been cool. I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what they have in store.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see all the different arts aspects as well. How is it that people how can people go ahead? I swear I can talk. How can people buy tickets and attend these different events? Like, do they have to buy tickets for each event? Is it priced separately for different things?
It's queencityshout.com.
Okay.
And it's $15 for the day or $30 for a 7-day pass, which is just a total bargain.
I would say, because this is a 7-day event.
Yeah. And with that card, it's basically like your passport. You get it stamped every day, and then you get a different color wristband for each day.
Okay.
And it gives you access to all the different programming. So the main part about this, which we haven't talked about yet, is volunteers are going to be at all the different locations selling the wristbands. These volunteers work for the nonprofits. And so this festival is a not-for-profit festival. All the funds that we take in are dispersed amongst the 6 nonprofits that we partner with.
Oh, nice.
Our mantra is celebrate the arts, support poverty relief. So the nonprofits that we serve are supporting poverty relief in the Ozarks.
So the Queen City Shout is an official nonprofit, or is it just
we are not a nonprofit?
You act like a nonprofit and just give all the money away. Which is great. I love that. That's an awesome mission that you have. I mean, one, you're giving a voice to all these artists, giving a place for them to perform and get exposure. You're giving the community a place to celebrate these things and see the great local talent that we have, which we have a lot of great local talent. And then you're also supporting people in need. So, I mean, that's a great...
Well, and that's just by nature, I don't know really what I'm trying to get at in terms of that, but I keep going back to this idea of organic, and it's just like finding a way to make things happen. So, like I said, started at the bookstore. Then we said, how can we give back to the community? And I decided, okay, I'm going to get in contact with The Kitchen, one nonprofit. Didn't sell any tickets because it's a bookstore. We're not going to charge people to come to the bookstore.
Sure, yeah.
So we collected canned goods. Then as we came out into the city, my wife was the homeless liaison for Springfield Public Schools for several years.
Yeah.
And she was the one that said, hey, how about instead of working with one nonprofit, why don't we think about this overall idea of supporting poverty relief? And so we started as an LLC, and we dispersed those funds to the nonprofits. We've talked for a couple years to switch to being a nonprofit and or a foundation. And so a lot of that's just been kind of educating myself as well as far as like what's more beneficial for the greater good of the poverty.
I'm just hearing Queen City Foundation. Sounds official. Queen City Shout Foundation. Sorry, I need to make sure that's in there.
Yeah. But, we do all the business model stuff in terms of keeping track of expenses and where everything goes. And we have people on the committee now. Back in the day, it was just me and my wife where we would account for everything with the volunteers.
And that is not easy.
No.
Because you're managing hundreds of people probably at a festival.
And literally walking around with our little money bags and counting it down for the evening. Like, okay, that's this amount. And
probably a little clipboard, writing notes down. Yeah.
So, I think with moving into the different barrios and expanding into the different varieties of programming and all that, again, it's going to naturally move into something more like that.
Okay. So tell me, what is your favorite story from Queen City Shout? What do you think epitomizes, like, over your 13 years of doing the festival?
I mean, I think this is kind of a personal or selfish kind of deal, but it's nice, especially back in the day when I was putting it all together on my own and wearing all these different hats, and finally getting to the point where it's like it rolls out, and just to experience the fact it's like kid in a candy store, where it's just like, wow. And I think I shared with you last time. I mean, I remember back in the day running around with my little 5S iPhone and getting on FaceTime and trying to, when it was just on C Street, trying to go from White River all the way down to Ruthie's, back to Lindbergh's, Moon City Pub, and just try to catch every act.
Yeah.
Just like 30-second clip of like, oh, here's so-and-so, and here's so-and-so. And I literally just run up and like get right in their face and be like, all right, let's get back to the drums. And, like, who's this dude? And then before it was like, oh, that's Eddie. That's Eddie with this little 5S.
I'm just imagining running in with this, at the time, really fancy little iPhone. Oh, I'm going to get recording. And then I'm going to run out again. It's like a whirlwind.
Yeah. But I guess at the time it was before COVID and stuff, but social media was obviously up and running, and it was just this idea of like getting that out.
Yeah.
To say, this is what you're missing. This is happening in real time. Come on down. Come on down.
And I'm sure as a musician, you just love to see other musicians being successful and seeing them perform. Man.
Discovered so much new music.
Yeah.
Because, I talked about earlier getting all these kind of repeats and these submissions that come in. But, there was a time when there were probably 30 acts
Yeah.
that we all knew each other from the circuit and from playing together, what I call kind of the veterans. And then they would tell me about an act that they saw, or I would get a submission from someone, or I would check out a Facebook page because it popped up as a recommended act, and this, that, or the other. And then to finally go and see one of them live, it'd be like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Remember that was last year. We also had Queen City Shout here at the studio and doing Sato screenings, but we had an artist come here and perform, and she was newer, a little younger.
Guinevere,
yeah. Amazing talent though. I loved hearing her perform. I wish we'd had more of an audience for her. But yeah, it was just amazing seeing like this stuff I'd never heard before, and she played some original stuff, and just it was incredible to see that. So I can only imagine multiplying that across 120 different acts and being able to see all the different variety of people and the talent that they have would be incredible.
Yeah.
And you're the one that made it possible for them to be out there doing that. So
well, it's all I've started capturing it or defining it not only with our sort of mantra, celebrate the arts, support poverty relief, but anytime I put that out there, I try to say, hey, Springfield, or hey, Ozarks, this is your festival.
yeah.
And but what I mean by that is like everyone's taking ownership. So it's about, you mentioned some acts kind of sprinkling in from like St. Louis, Kansas City.
For the film screenings, yeah.
And, we've had bands from Chicago and Austin, Texas, and Portland, Oregon. But it's always at the heart of it. The majority of it's always going to be around here.
Yeah.
And, we talked last time about just for the size of this city, it's just incredible the amount of talent that there is in the various arts.
And there is
not just
a lot.
The music.
Yeah. And it's not because of Branson, though I'm sure that really helps. But
yeah. But it's an art city,
It is. Yeah, and people don't see it very often, but yeah, there's a lot of really talented people here that are artists, and we do support them as a community. And but it's great to be able to get them out and actually put them on, I want to say on display, but put them into a 1 week experience where anybody can go out and see like all of the different talents that we have. So last question, I think. Of course, we'll probably tangent off of it a couple times. Like creative people do. Creative people don't do that at all. No, not at all. Where do you see this festival going? Like in 5 years, where would you like this to be? I mean, you just barely started. I mean, your committee just tripled. You're starting to grow out the film side of things. You're doing the visual arts. You're doing dance. You're doing all those other things. Do you see us becoming maybe not as big as South by Southwest, but something more similar to their size?
I think it's very possible to one day be comparable.
Yeah.
To one day be recognized as like, oh, this is another one of those type of South by Southwest in the Midwest where we can go.
So people are no longer just flying over us. we're a destination as opposed to.
Right. You took the words right out of my mouth. Austin and Nashville get name dropped a lot as music cities, and
which is sad because, I'm sure you know the history, but we used to be one of the top 3 producers back in the 50s and 60s. We were like one of the go-to places, but then we went to Nashville instead.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen in 5 years, but I definitely have this visual of like having programming all over the city, quite literally. Even like to the visual arts. This year, we have gallery displays running the whole month of March.
Wow.
So starting March 1st through the whole month of March. So not just covering the festival week, but now the whole month. People can go to Prairie Pie and Coffee Ethic and see some, local artwork from some of the artists that are represented.
Wow. That's cool.
And I believe some of those same artists are going to be doing live painting at some of the venues. So then you have these collaborative where like there's like live music and someone's being inspired by that music and they're creating. And some of them are going to be auctioning some of their pieces off for Queen City Shout.
Nice.
So it's just like going back to that idea of like a carnival or a circus where it's nice.
It's a big community event.
Yeah, to have
it kind of reminds me when growing up we used to have block parties, which I don't know. I don't see that as much anymore. But we lived when I lived in Phoenix, and we were in a big neighborhood of 200 houses. So we would. Once a year, we'd all just get together and have this big festival. We'd have, basketball games and people bring food, and we'd all have, different things going on around the block. And it's like, that's kind of the vibe I get from Queen City Shout of like, we're just here to enjoy the arts and have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely.
A big arts block party.
Yeah. And yeah, it's that. So that's the other side of the mountain.
Yeah.
Talking to a lot of artists, because in some ways, not fully, but in some ways, it's like artists supporting artists.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, how
do you get the community involved?
How do we get the community? Which, again, not to suggest that some aren't. There's a huge support of the community, but it's just encouraging a greater majority of the community to be like, hey, come out and,
That's a question that
instead of just band for band or artist for artist or cinematographer for cinematographer, it's like, and so I see that changing over the course of the last few years.
Nice.
But it needs to be to a larger degree.
Yeah. Well, maybe that answers my other question I have for you then, because see, tangents.
There's no tangents here.
Never. What would be the one biggest thing that you would want people to do to help Queen City Shout? I mean, putting aside the poverty relief, because that's going to happen. People come and spend money, and that's a great goal. But for the festival itself, what is the one big thing that people could do to help it to be successful?
Coming out. I mean, bring word of mouth.
And not just artists for artists, but the community at large.
Right.
I mean, you want to have everybody coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a sampler, and, we were talking earlier, you had mentioned just this idea of kind of, getting cabin fever and wanting to get out again, and stuff. And what better way, even if it's your one time a year. I mean, there's a couple of bands. There's like 2 bands that they don't even play out anymore. This is like their 1 year reunion show.
Yeah,
They come back together once a year just for this event.
Just for that event, yeah.
And then, there's other artists that actually are doing this full time, like I think of Molly Healy or Justin Larkin, that give their time, they donate their time to say, yeah, we'll come play this event, and it may be, I don't know, but it may be one, if not just a few of the kind of donated events that they would contribute to or something like that. And so we appreciate things like that, but it's for folks to really support it. It's just come out, bring your friends, tell everybody, and you
don't have to be an audiophile or a cinephile or anything like that. You just come out and enjoy it. Enjoy the local talent from the community.
It's a smorgasbord.
Yes, I love that.
And you go to one place, you got your wristband, you walk in, you're there for 5-10 minutes, you're like, okay. Yeah. Go down the street to the next place. Pop in Time Timber, Royal.
Because that's the beauty of this festival you set up.
Yeah. And you move around, and again, we have it staggered in such a way too that you technically could, within an hour time frame, you could go from the main stage at White River to Lindbergh's to the tap room stage. You could catch 3 different acts, like maybe the first 20,
which is kind of unheard of,
the middle 20, and the last 20 of the set.
Yeah,
because they all roughly get about an hour to play.
That is impressive.
So,
all right, well, we're pretty much wrapped up for now with this. So one more time, just let people know, how do they participate in Queen City Shout?
QueenCityShout.com. All the daily schedules will be there for all the different programming. That's also where they can contribute to our GoFundMe if they want to contribute directly to the nonprofits. And then, as I mentioned, $15 a day or $30 for the 7-day pass. Yeah. And March 18th through the 24th. March 18th,
yeah. So by the time this comes out, it should probably be, I think, next week or the week after that. So mark your calendars for March 18th. Eddie, thank you so much. It's always great having you on here. We're going to have to, like I said, we're going to have him back to actually play for us, because you are in a band and you do perform at Queen City Shout, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can go and see him there. So, Eddie, thank you very much. And we will be happy to have you back later on. And for everybody else, as Matt would say, keep exploring the Ozarks.
Thanks again for listening to Exploring the Ozarks. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our social media channels to help us keep exploring the stories of the Ozarks. If you're looking for more ways to support our show, we have sponsorships for businesses and Patreon for individual supporters. Check the links in the description for more details. Thanks for your support, and keep exploring the Ozarks.